welcome back to Bit News. A number of things to talk about today, and we're going to focus a little bit on gold because for the first time just recently, a single Bitcoin became more valuable than an ounce of gold. You know, the question is, what's holding up the global adoption of Bitcoin? I mean, it's been around for about, 8 or 9 years now, and it was being held up as the revolutionary currency that was going to overthrow the tyranny of banks and credit unions and government institutions. So what's it going to take before it gets far more broadly accepted? Because most people in general still have not even heard of it, or they have negative perceptions. And that's, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that bad news is much more entertaining than good news. I mean, all the news that you see on the news reports on television tend to be bad news. And it's because of that many people still believe that Bitcoin is primarily used for drug trafficking and tax evasion. And until that changes, until more of us get out there and talk about Bitcoin, then you're unlikely to see the Bitcoin symbol at most supermarkets. It's coming, but it's taking a little while to get there. Although there are over 100,000 merchants that a lot more, I think, by now, from Microsoft to Dell to Expedia, that will facilitate Bitcoin transactions. But still, these examples aren't the norm. But you've got Starbucks taking it and Subway taking it. So it's only a matter of time before all the online retailers join the cryptocurrency revolution. Particularly as 2016 was a year in which currencies all over the world were found to be pretty unstable. We mentioned gold. Let's talk about gold as a long-term bet. Just imagine that an old aunt or an uncle had passed away and left you a lot of money in the will. And you didn't really need to use it right now. You're doing fine. You got plenty of cash. And so you want to put it away, put it aside into something that's going to hold its value and hopefully go up in value. Which do you go to, gold or Bitcoin? What would you choose? Because now they're in roughly the same price range. So we're going to do a few comparisons here, look at them side by side. A key advantage Bitcoin has over gold is that its supply level is fixed. If you don't know exactly what that means, I don't have time, obviously, to go into it in great detail here. We'll make sure that there is something on this page that you can learn about. Its supply level is fixed and it's transparent. Overproduction can never diminish its value. Global supply of gold, however, has increased by 1% to 2% annually over the last century. In fact, just recently, in China, the largest gold deposit in China's history was discovered in the province of Shandong. 382 tons of gold. How'd you like to be the person that discovered that? 382 tons. It's expected to add $22 billion in value over the next 2 years. That's a huge find. As e-commerce becomes more digitalized, then Bitcoin's importance to the community will continue to grow. But let's get back to gold. Gold has something important that Bitcoin lacks: history. Bitcoin is newer and more flamboyant, but gold has a track record. People of all races and civilizations have been storing it for its value for more than 5,000 years. Both gold and silver have been a trusted store of value. People have a willingness to store their value, to store their savings in gold because they trust it. Gold's advantage over Bitcoin is that it's not dependent on the operation of the internet. So there's a degree of protection should any government shut down the internet in their country. I can't see that happening very easily, but nevertheless, to people who don't know much about Bitcoin, it's proven itself immune to technological disruption. Whatever happens to dot-com companies or the housing market, gold is gold. It's always just sitting there in the background, withstanding the test of time. I mean, 50 years from now, people are still going to have gold. You know, of course, they'll have cryptocurrency as well. I'm quite confident about that. But gold is a very low-risk store of value. But it is impossible to ignore the fact that in just 8 years, Bitcoin's value has increased from a quarter of a penny to over $1,000. If it continues to rise in value, as most experts agree it will, does this mean it's a better short-term investment? Well, perhaps asking whether Bitcoin will unseat gold as the universal store of value, it's probably like the proverbial apples and oranges question. They're two completely different things. Even though some investors do describe Bitcoin as gold version 2. Gold 2.0 is probably more what they usually say, I think. So, as in all types of investment, the main thing to be considered is your personal level, comfortable level of risk. At this stage, gold is comparatively stable, but Bitcoin appears to have a huge potential for growth. A potential for growth that comes with maybe slightly riskier investments. Bitcoin has proven itself as a store of value over the last 9 years, but gold, it's been around for over 5,000 years. So in terms of portfolio management, as always, the question is not Bitcoin versus gold, but how much you put into each. So the answer really, as in all forms of investment, is diversification, having gold and Bitcoin in your portfolio. They're both really interesting to have, aren't they? But hopefully that comparison will have told you a little bit about Bitcoin in relation to gold. And if you want to learn a lot more about all aspects of Bitcoin, including Bitcoin versus gold, then go to bitnews.us and we'll have more information there. Hope this has been interesting today and has given you some interesting information. Thank you. See you next time.